Hi everyone, and welcome to session 6. This is actually our video for that session that was for April 8th, 2016. And again, we're covering innovative early childhood education curriculum. And this is part of the Native American Excellence in Education Early Childhood Teacher Preparation Grant. And we're doing the technology integration course. So as a review, just to kind of check our progress, again, this is session 6, and originally we had planned on meeting session 6 during March 25th. I believe this turned out to be Good Friday, and so we didn't meet on that day. University was closed, so we rescheduled, and this is the video of that rescheduled session. Our next session, session 7, will be April 22nd. And we're going to do that face-to-face in the Durant campus or on the Durant campus. And I believe the lab number is 203. Even though we will be in the lab, please do remember to bring your personal devices with you, such as your laptop and or your tablet or smartphone. And I would really like you to get used to bringing those items with you during your classes. It's just a much more effective way of taking notes. So you can record with permission. There's just lots of opportunity. You always have your calendar right in front of you then. So if you haven't done that in the past, please just get used to bringing your laptop to class and or tablet. Okay, so as a overall session agenda for this week, we are going to we usually do a check-in. So what I want you to be doing is thinking about what's working for you during this class, what's not, what can we improve, what can I improve, and certainly feel comfortable sending me an email or even a text about that. If you do not hear back from me within 24 hours, that means that I did not get it or somehow got lost, and I do travel a fair amount, so sometimes networks go wonky, etc. So if you don't hear from me in 24 hours, please message me again, and I will get back to you for sure. I generally respond right away. Also, I want you to be reflecting if you are making adequate progress on your Google certification, which is what I'm going to be talking about later. And then a general kind of pain level. Remember that we always do that pain threshold when you go to the doctor. They ask on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst pain, 1 being the no pain factor. How are you doing? Right now, this is getting close. I believe this is week 12, and so of the overall semester. And so you should be, of course, through midterms and gearing up for finals. So maybe not a lot of pain right now, but a certain amount of pressure. Making sure that you get everything done by the end of the semester is probably in force. So number 2 here, reading review. So this was Tara Hawkins's week to do a summary of chapters 10 and 11 for us, and that was due session 6. So Tara, if you'll go ahead and post your overall summaries of chapters 10 and 11 in Blackboard, or you can email them to me if you want. I would prefer you to upload them to everyone though. And then Google certifications was number 3. We're going to talk about that and look at your progress. Hopefully you're making pretty good progress there and you had some time to catch up during spring break. Again, remember that your Google Certified Educator Level 1 is due session 11. Upcoming readings, we're going to be looking at that as well towards the end of this presentation. So application, again, here is our textbook and our study guide. I am even more pleased that we are using this text and that we found the study guide in Teachers Pay Teachers. That was actually the main topic of a session that I went to at the American Education Research Association conference that was last week and is continuing on into this week. And they were looking at open education resources, and Teachers Pay Teachers was the source of a whole study that was pretty well done, and perhaps if you all want, if somebody messages me and says they want it, I can download or I can get a copy of that study for you, just as an example of what a what a scholarly study looks like. Excuse me. Okay. And then your reading assignments, again, Tara Hawkins, chapters 10 and 11 summaries due this session. Jenna, you're up next, and so yours will be due on April 22nd, and that's chapter 12. And again, you're just answering the main questions in the study guide and doing an overall summary of the key points that we need to know. One article that I wanted you to get familiar with is this article entitled 10 Ways Teacher Planning Should Adjust to the Google Generation. So go ahead and follow this link, read through it. I'm not going to go there now. The bandwidth is still a little low at my location right now. And so you can go there, follow that link. It's active. And what I want you to do is just pick 3, maximum 5 items of the 10 that you are really going to focus on and use in your teacher planning. So you aren't going to have to do too much adjustment because you're just starting out and you're a pre-service teacher and student. But I certainly want you to be thinking about how you will use these 10 tips and tools in your classroom to adjust to what they're calling the Google generation. Now, the reason I say 3 to 5 is because generally folks' brains, students' brains, just about most people's brains, do not really integrate more than 3 to 5 core areas at a time in terms of best practices. So when I was in my classroom, I typically only had 3 to 4 actual rules that I went by and that I really encouraged my students to follow, strongly encouraged sometimes to follow. So choose 3, maybe 4, maximum 5 ways that you'll make sure your planning incorporates or adjusts for the Google generation. And then current reading, looking at our study guide. This is chapter 10, Other Technology for Early Childhood Classrooms. And overall, the key questions are focusing on what gadgets are appropriate for early childhood education students. Now, I must say that this is typically, for as long as I can remember, years and years. I've been in education. I got my teaching certificate in 2000, 2001. So it's going 15, 16 years now. And from the very beginning of my instructional technology career, which was actually pretty much at the beginning of that, I've always focused on technology because I've had that God-given ability. So from the very beginning, teachers, parents, most folks, their first question for me is, what about technology for preschool and early childhood education? Don't you think it's too young? Don't you think that's too much electronic interface in their developing brains that early? And so there's a lot of opinion about this, and what I'm looking for right now is your feedback regarding what the text says. You're welcome to do other searches, and obviously if I'm teaching technology, culturally responsive and appropriate technology integration for early childhood education, I think there is a place for it. And with all things, I think it's about appropriate use. So that's what we have to determine, and we can do that together, is what is appropriate. Is technology use at certain levels appropriate for all cultures and all settings, in rural and remote settings versus urban? And so we'll decide that together, really, because I think it is very culturally specific. All right, and then think about the devices that are listed there, which ones are most appropriate for these different sectors listed in question number 2. And then number 3, what other types of technologies can you use to supplement standard lesson plans? And then there's some activities listed for you there and that you can use in your future classroom. All right, and then chapter 11, which is special considerations. How should we use technology with kindergartners, different from even early childhood students or our Head Start students? How do the differences in the brains of Head Start age students and kindergarten students differ? And therefore, what technologies are different or would be appropriate for those different groups? And then what should you take into consideration when planning to use tech for under age 3? This does happen. I see it happen in both formal and informal settings at home and communities, and so definitely want your thoughts about this. Okay, and then applying. What I wanted to do here was with the Native American Institute, I was invited to take a group of our students on the Natchez Trace field trip over spring break. So although you all weren't able to go, I did want to kind of point out some of the ways technology was being integrated or mentioned or thought of in the field trip and in Choctaw, Mississippi and Alabama about ways that the cultures there, and some were part of the Mississippi Choctaw tribe, and then just the surrounding cultures were mentioning, thinking about using technology. So one of the unexpected experiences I had that I wanted to share with you because I think it'll be useful is that on the Natchez Trace we had some Chickasaw tour guides that took us to Chief George Colbert's house, and he was an ex-Chickasaw chief, one of the time prior to removal, and his house is right on the Natchez Trace, and the current owner of his house, his name is Raymond, and it just so happened that the tour guide just offhandedly mentioned, oh, by the way, Crystal, Raymond was a founding designer of Lego.com. And so, of course, I was extremely excited, had not planned on that. And so then Raymond and I had probably a 45-minute conversation about his interaction with Lego.com. And so that led to reminding me that Lego use in early childhood education is extremely prevalent and I think important. I think there's a lot of opportunity in design principles, engineering principles, future programming principles, even for our Head Start age students. Certainly as you get into the upper grades, even primary, elementary, high school, and even college, Lego Mindstorm programming and robotics is really the core curriculum and tool for teaching programming. Oftentimes, if you see schools not using Legos and Lego Mindstorms, it's because they are costly. But if all schools had unlimited budgets, they certainly would be using Lego Mindstorms. I even had this as an introductory project tool at my Pepperdine doctorate program back in 2010 when we started. So, but it's used all the way to the programming part, the robotics part, even elementary, and then certainly just the Legos in Head Starts and early childhood education. Another way that technology popped up on the Natchez Trace was via digital storytelling. And here is a great little video that I wanted you to see, and it's on YouTube. And this is a professionally produced video about the Natchez Trace, so I wanted you to see that. Of course, it was videoed. It looks like a very high-end camera was used, professional video editing tools were used, and so I wanted you to see what that would look like. And digital storytelling is something that you could definitely use repeatedly in an early childhood education class through these sorts of virtual field trips, and also via interviews, which you'll see here. And this is Tom Hendricks, so we actually got to meet Tom Hendricks in person, and you'll hear more about his story. And this is actually travelchannel.com, so it's of course a professionally done video, but it's very informal. And again, these are the types of asynchronous virtual videos that you could record and share for your students. And maybe you can't take your students out on a field trip to meet an expert in person like Tom Hendricks, who is an extremely valuable person, I believe, to our Trail of Tears history and to the overall Mississippian culture. And but I wanted you to see an example of how technology and digital storytelling can be done, just even informally. All right, and you can follow that link there for Tom, Mr. Hendricks. And social media. So there was a lot of social media being used. Certainly for the museums that we visited, including one of those was Moundville, Alabama. And Moundville is a really important archaeological park that is under the stewardship of the University of Alabama and the state of Alabama. And we got to visit there. They have a really amazing native restorative garden there. And it's just a very beautiful park. And so if you get the chance, I believe they allow camping and that sort of thing. If you ever get the chance, do go. But I wanted you to see how social media is being used to communicate out what their historical preservation and archaeological park here. They are also, here's a QR code that they're using, of course, websites and videos. All right, and then digital museums. This is definitely a venture or a way that museums are communicating out their story to a broader audience because they realize many people do not have the resources, financial resources, to actually visit the museum. So those were a few ways that we got to experience technology on the Natchez Trace. We can certainly talk more about that. There was a lot that happened, and we can share much more about that. And I'll be creating a formal presentation, a more comprehensive presentation about the Natchez Trace in the next few weeks with hopefully the help of the students that went to share with you. Okay, and then so applying where we are in our overall progress again in the course. So this is session 6, and you were supposed to complete unit 8 by now. So you're measuring, understanding, and sharing, and then measuring student growth. Okay. And then actually unit 7 was supposed to be done last time. And then also be working for session 7 on unit 9. Okay, so teach students online skills and 62 minutes worth and 3 lessons. So that should be doable. That's about an hour worth of lessons in a month. And so if you break it up, 15 minutes per week, or about 1 lesson per week. All right, and then we should be on track for our session 11, which I believe is in September, for you to be finished. Here's the link to the certifications if you need it. And wanted you to see what that kind of looked like. So here's, this is, again, I just really like how Google has simply laid out their online learning modules. Here's the introduction, what will you learn? So there's your objectives, your learning objectives. By the end of the lesson, the student will learn. That's the old 8-step lesson plan that I learned 15 years ago. And then what products will we cover? So they're looking specifically at what tools you're going to be using. And here's what you're going to actually be doing. So here's your tasks. Create a Google Sheet, create a Google Form, look at data collection. And these are all really great skills and tools that you're going to need for your classroom that will make you a much more effective teacher. Now, there are other tools that you can do data collection and surveys with, like SurveyMonkey. There's several apps for that as well, but Google just has done a great job, and I like to give credit where credit is due. They've done a great job integrating all of these products and making them as simple as possible for teachers where you require the least amount of training as possible. So reflecting, and so we are not going to do via Google Hangouts next session. We agreed on our brief meeting last Friday that we're going to meet in person. I believe it's lab number 203 in the Morrison building. so we will be meeting in person. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email me. You're also welcome to text me or Chantal, of course. And then a wish list. Is there anything that you're seeing out in the world, you're experiencing in your other classes, maybe in your child's education that you have questions about and you want to cover more of? Okay, so extending, I did want to share this article that was published recently that I was interviewed for regarding our Connect Home initiative and ways that Southeastern and several different organizations are going to be rolling out digital connectivity and digital literacy courses to the Choctaw Nation. This is a federal initiative actually that was launched last summer with President Obama's visit to the Choctaw Nation, and I was fortunate enough to be in the audience for that. And since I've been teaching digital literacy for over 15 years, I actually got started really with it at UCLA in 2001, 2002. So that's why they've asked me to design these classes. But we're working with the Youth Advisory Board for some intergenerational mentoring and learning and kind of creating a student tech help core, which is really exciting. I'm thrilled. But anyhow, here's an article about that. Go ahead and read that. Also, just note over here is a little advertisement for the Chickasaw Cultural Center, which I have not been to yet, but I would certainly love to take a field trip there. And any of you who are interested, please let me know. Maybe we can carpool over. And then speaking of field trips, here are some options for us. I'd really like to have us get out and explore some of the technology that's being used around the state together and see it in action. Here are my top options so far, and I can certainly do some other hunting around, but the first one would be 3D Printing Lab. They have a wonderful, I think it's the only 3D printing lab in the state that is open to the public, and that's at Rose State College in Midwest City. I have some friends that work up there that are directors of different departments, and they graciously gave me an amazing tour about a year ago. And so they're very open, but they have students that come in and of all ages, and they do give tours and teach lessons, and they have a video, etc. It's a really great experience. There's also the Encyclomedia Conference. This is in the fall in October, so it would be after our session, but we could still agree to do that and meet up and go to the Encyclomedia Conference, which is basically the Oklahoma EdTech. It's been the mainstay of EdTech conferences in Oklahoma. Also, I told you about that I redesigned Victory Life Academy with their team. I was the outside consultant hired in to redesign their school to make it more innovative. And we did go one-to-one tablets. We have online learning components, virtual mentoring. A lot of the stuff you're learning here, they went Google Apps for Education. A lot of stuff I'm covering with you, they are actually doing in person, and they do have a head start as well. So we could certainly go visit them. I'm, of course, friends with all of their leaders, and we can go visit and see how they're doing things and ask questions. And then not so close by is Howe Public Schools, which that is the wonderful Scott and Tammy Parks. Tammy's become a friend of mine since I've been here, and she's a real strong ed tech leader in the state, and they have been up at Howe for probably, Scott's the superintendent, Tammy's the instructional technology coordinator and teacher. She has a wonderful student newscast, student-produced newscast, which is just, she does a great job with that. And so they've been there almost 20 years, and so they've really built a very strong technology integrated program. We could talk about going to visit them, but they're just south of Poto, so they're, I think, about 2.5 hours away. And then Durant Public Schools actually has done a pretty good job of integrating tech. They have some one-to-one technology integration. I've spoke with their technology director and coordinator, and they're really supportive, great people as well. And so we can certainly go visit some of their schools too. those are my ideas. If you have others that you'd like to see, we can talk about it and agree and get there either maybe this summer or early fall after the semester started. Here's your upcoming Google certification assignments. Unit 9, how to search utilizing filters. This is actually very important information for both you and your future students. How to work with extensions. Those can be very helpful. They're like mini apps that go on to your web browser. That Screencastify, that records sessions I told you about earlier. That is an extension, managing your bookmarks. I don't use a whole lot of localized bookmarks. In Chrome, as I believe I've shared with you, I use Diigo, diigo.com, and that way I can share them out, my bookmarks out with groups of folks that I choose to. Here's your link to that Unit 9, so teach students online skills. And then upcoming reading, again, Jenna Mabry is going to be doing Chapter 12, and as a preview, how can you make technology access more equitable? This is definitely near and dear to my heart, and that's why I do what I do, and that's why I'm thrilled to be at Southeastern, is because you know, technology is definitely a very equalizing tool, or it can be if it's done correctly. And my passion is really trying to empower communities in need. That's been my slogan for a long time. And I believe you all know I'm at a conference and in DC, American Education Research Association, and I've been the Secretary Treasurer of the Critical Examination of Race, Ethnicity, Class, and Gender. So looking at that critically, and the goal of looking at those items critically is to look at ways to make things more equitable, make education more equitable, make society more equitable. And I think technology is one of the tools, not the only tool certainly, but one of the tools that can help that process. And then what technologies would be our most or least welcomed and why, and how can technology be used to establish links between schools, caregivers, and the local community, which is, again, another one that's dear and dear to my heart is creating that school to home bridge or school to community bridge, because it's really a joint partnership if we're going to really support our children as best as we can, especially in Native and Indigenous settings. And that is it. If you have any questions, please give me a call or text. And I look forward to seeing you for session 7 on April 22nd at the Durant campus. And I believe it's Morrison 203, but Chantel and I will confirm that. All right, thank you. Have a great few weeks.